Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to another Guardian Druid video. And in this video, does Guardian Druid actually even have a counter? Now, a lot of players would be suspecting that Mage, Warlock, Druid is the counter to the Guardian Druid, and it is quite a difficult matchup, one that has taken us weeks to actually figure out a strategy to be able to defeat. And in this video, I'm going to be going over that exact strategy. This strategy will apply for other compositions that are also non-Guardian related, so if you're playing without a tank and you're having trouble with Mage, Warlock, Druid, this video will certainly help. Now, the two major threats, of course, against this composition is going to be Greater Pyroblast, already being casted by the Mage, and Chaos Bolt being casted by the Destruction Warlock. Now, my main game plan is to do a lot of single target damage to the Mage and effectively ignore the Warlock. Greater Pyroblast is going to be a significant threat throughout the entire game, whereas the Warlock is only going to be a significant threat during their cooldowns, this being Infernals, giant green rockmen that fall from the sky, and Dark Soul, which is a purple aura that starts to revolve around the Warlock. Now, you can see Infernal activated, that 3M with the green icon. This is a very dangerous spell that the Warlock activates, and what you want to do while it is up is run away from the Warlock, stay out of line of sight of him, don't go near him. You want to focus on healing your team, making sure that you're recovered and healthy, and line of sighting the Warlock and Greater Pyroblast at all costs. You are going to do this every single time that this 3M and the green icon appears on your Omnibar, as well as the Dark Soul, the purple icon, which hasn't appeared yet. So you always want to keep your eye on the Warlock and these two cooldowns. Otherwise, there's no Infernals up right now. There's no Dark Soul active. It's time to attack the Mage. Now, using Sharpened Blade on a spell like Temporal Shield is a good idea. It will reduce the healing from it by 50%, as well as removing it with Purge. But of course, my Restoration Shaman doesn't want to overextend and expose himself to crowd control. So what he's doing is he's repositioning to the closest pillar to where the Mage is bringing us and attacking us. Now, our main focus is going to be coordinating interrupts on Greater Pyroblast and Polymorph and making it as difficult as possible for the Mage to do anything, while at the same time trying to do as much damage to them as possible. I changed one of my honor talents. You normally are running Protector of the Pack, but against this composition, I didn't opt for it. Instead, I chose to run for a Frenzied Regeneration honor talent, where when Frenzied Regeneration is ticking, you gain Rage, and you can use Maul when you have Rage, which is your highest hitting single target attack, and you need single target damage to be able to end this game. Now, at any point when the Mage dips below 50% health, as he did in that position, it can be a good idea to use Anima. In the first 5 minutes of the game, it is not likely that you will be able to defeat the Mage, Warlock, Druid, but they will be able to defeat you if you do not respect the Infernals and the Dark Soul that I had already gone over, or multiple Greater Pyroblasts from being cast. Now, occasionally, when you see Chaos Bolt casted, another side effect of it that you want to be aware of, as Destruction Warlocks will be running the honor talent Fell Fissure. After the Chaos Bolt lands, green fire is on the ground. In PvE, you don't stand in the green fire. In PvP, you don't stand in the green fire. It reduces your healing by 50%. That is what makes this composition and most compositions in the game strong. Now, in this position, you see the 3M with that green icon lit up. You also see the red one with a 149. That's combustion from the Mage. So both the Mage and the Warlock are a big threat right now. You abandon damage in this position, you get to a box, you bunker down with your buddies, you heal, you support, you stun, you spin around in a circle, but you don't stand in line of sight of the Mage or the Warlock. Now, when those cooldowns are over, you start making your way back to the Mage, coordinating your interrupts onto him. This is going to be Wind Shear, Pummel, and Skull Bash in the composition that I am currently playing. And you also want to occasionally be using some disruption on the Warlock, especially if your Shaman is repositioning, because you can see the Mage is going from one side of the bottom to the other side, which means my Shaman has to go to the other box that's closest to that bottom. When he moves to the other bottom, Shaman has to come back across. And while he's coming across, the Warlock can kind of have his way with the Shaman. So using some support or calling out that the Warlock's casting Fear or something to try and assist the Shaman with his reposition. Because you can see right now, the Shaman with that box icon above his head is running to the Druid's pillar because the Mage is on this side. So you want to be coordinating that. It's more the Shaman's responsibility to wind shear and grounding the Warlock and make sure he can safely get across, but the Shaman will be going back and forth constantly. Green fire on the ground, get out of it. It's a good thing that the Mage doesn't really want to stand still too much, so you'll be able to move out of it just because the Mage moves himself out of it. Now, The winning strategy against this composition is to avoid those Infernals and Dark Souls until you get to a point in Dampening where you can run the Mage down, spamming Purge. It's very important against Mage, Warlock, Druid that you have a Purge if you want to execute on this strategy. You will remove the heal over time effects. Most importantly, the Blazing Barrier, which is the largest single target instant heal that this composition actually has on its team. So the Shaman will be aggressive. And when you're in that final couple minutes of the game, your Shaman will use Spirit Link Totem for you to kill the Mage. You're not using Spirit Link Totem to stay alive in this matchup, because if all you do is stay alive, you're eventually going to die in this matchup. You will have to eventually use your cooldowns to stay on the Mage, purge him, and remove him from the game. And there will be about a 2-minute window of time, roughly 4 or 5 minutes from now. And you will maybe have to stay in during Infernals at that time. But you'll use Spirit Link Totem, so it'll be okay. It'll save you, it'll heal you, and it will keep you alive. So we continue to stay on the Fire Mage. Now, normally you can use Barkskin to activate some Brambles damage and really get some added pressure. But this early on in the game, I would rather save Barkskin to keep myself alive. Now, you see the 3M, the red icon with a 149 at the bottom of the screen there, right there. I think I'm pointing at it. That right there. That's scary time. It's time to get out. It's time to get out of the pool. Okay, there's thunder in the sky. You don't go swimming when there's thunder in the sky. You press Wild Growth, you Swift Mend, you stay at the box. You can attack the Infernal. If you can manage to kill the Infernal, you do remove all of its extra benefits to the Destruction Warlock. So not a bad idea, considering you normally don't have a lot to do. Dot up the Fell Hunter, remove its shield, maybe potentially cleave it down later on. And then as soon as those are gone, all right, time to go back swimming, have some fun, attack the Mage. And you can see that Maul is my highest priority. You do want to make sure that Thrash stays at 3 stacks as much as possible, because you have a talent that increases the damage to the target by 2% more for every stack, so 6% extra damage on your Maul. Of course, you should expect that to fall off while you're running away, but you do want to try and get that Thrash stacked up again as soon as possible. Now, if you do this and you avoid Infernals and Dark Souls, and use cooldowns if you need to, because occasionally you're going to get stunned and you're going to get locked out in the open. So it may be a good idea to occasionally use the Survival Instincts during that time. But you can see that if you're rotating kicks on Greater Pyroblast and Poly, while Infernals and Combustion aren't up, their team really doesn't do any damage, especially at least with our composition. Now, you may be playing a composition that it is more threatening, but you also may be more threatening, so this situation will change. But the strategy doesn't either way. We decide to mix it up a little bit, where I start going after the Druid and try to prevent him from going for any sort of re-stealths, because it adds an extra stun to the composition. That's the main reason the Druid is brought on this, is that their mana regeneration is the best, and because they can sneak away with Feral Affinity and Drink. We were later on, after feeling this out, realized that it wasn't really going to work. We didn't have enough disruption on the Mage, and he was getting too many Greater Pyroblasts on me, which is actually a big threat because I have the highest health. And if you don't know, Greater Pyroblast does 35% of the target's health. So it actually hits me the hardest of anyone in the game. So we decide, all right, this isn't working anymore. Back to the main strategy. Get on the Mage. Dark Soul's not up. Infernal's not up. Combustion's not up right now, or at least not active. Try and do as much damage as possible. And there's a certain point where you no longer want to use Anima rotationally to try and maximize your damage. In this position, you can use Anima when the Druid is drinking, because it means the Druid is very far away, unlikely to get back to the Mage to save him from big bursts of damage like the Anima. Well, green icon with 3M is up. It's time to get out of the pool. We're back at the box. We're pressing Rejuvenation. Swiftmend and Wild Growth, great heals to try and help the Shaman. We actually tanked a Chaos Bolt there, which is a pretty big mistake, and this is actually putting us very far behind at this point in the game. But as soon as this set of Infernals is down, you can see we're at 16 minutes and 30. I believe it's around 12 minutes where we actually end up being able to do enough damage to kill through all of the support and the healing on this composition. But you still just respect those cooldowns, get back in, try and get your Thrash stacked up to 3 as soon as possible. I use Stampeding Roar when my warrior uses Blade Storm. This allows him to freely connect, because you can't be crowd controlled during Blade Storm, and you're moving really fast with Stampeding Roar. So you get back to the Mage, and you can not have to use a gap closer that the Mage can use Blink to avoid. This gets us more uptime. And then back to the Honor talent that I picked for some extra rage regeneration with Frenzied Regen. So I will heal myself with Frenzied Regen right here, and it gives me extra rage, which gets me more mauls, which gives me more single target damage, which is exactly what you need against this composition. It is not a big deal to keep Moonfire on the lock. I would say it's a decent deal to keep it up on the Druid to try and stop him from re-stealthing whenever you can, but most of your global cooldowns need to be maximized to single target damage if you're going to be able to penetrate through all of the defense. I also run Overrun in this composition as it gives me extra mobility to get to the target, an extra stun, and an annoying knockback, so I was able to reposition their whole team and get an extra stun for more disruption. You can see my rage is almost always maxed out, and we're now at about the 15-minute mark. And the Omni bar is usually incorrect, at least mine is, that with a minute with that green icon, it's about 30 seconds off. So you may want to be paying more attention to it about 20 seconds from now. Just pay attention to when it's active. Get away from the Mage and the Warlock as soon as possible. But you can see when Dampening is up, the Druid is trying to drink, so we use Sharpened Blade, and we really hammer down with as much damage as possible. I use Stampeding Roar on my Warrior's Blade Storm, so he goes spinny really fast, and then we are just training the Mage into the ground. I do start to use crowd control on the Druid at this point in Dampening. I overrun stun the Druid into Incapacitating Roar, and that nets us an Ice Block. You may have to start using some of your utility on the Druid, but this got us a main cooldown. Infernals are up, and we should be running away at this point, but our warrior didn't run away immediately. Perhaps got a little bit overexcited with getting the ice block or something, but you still want to respect the Infernals even at this point in the game. You can see that red icon on my Shaman. You should be aiming to dispel that as soon as possible. It allows the Warlock to get Mortal Coil onto 2 targets rather than 1. I'm still kind of slow with it, but you do want to aim to dispel it as soon as possible. It is most often going to be activated during Infernal, so you should be getting ready to decurse, heal, and run away while that is active. The Druid is drinking, but we're waiting for Infernals to be over. We're trying to recover. Of course, this game is very long. It is high dampening, so we're not actually getting up to about 100% health at any point, but we're getting to the point where it's time to purge, and your Shaman wants to run the Honor Talent Electrocute. It will add some extra damage when they are dispelling, and this is where we are going to start having to use Survival Instincts, Spirit Link Totems, Die by the Swords to stay on the target, not to stay alive, and you kind of just beef yourself up, and you push through the pain. You have to push through the pain because it's going to be a lot of pain with a Warlock free casting on you. Again, Stampeding Roar the Blade Storm. That allowed my warrior to use Heroic Leap on the Demonic Gateway. The Warlock's doing a good job of making this very annoying for me to get back to the target, so I just decided to bash the Warlock, get back on the Mage, and I'm trying to prioritize getting the Thrash up, I believe, as soon as possible. You don't want that 3-stack to fall off at this point in the game because this is where things start to happen. Remember, the Mage doesn't have an Ice Block thanks to the crowd control we used earlier. I could use an Overrun stun in this position, which I do. Now I need to try and dispel, but I don't dispel it quickly enough here onto myself, that Havoc. But with the Overrun stun, my warrior is already getting the Mage down to half health. My Shaman is pressing Purge. This is where you just go, and don't stop going. The Warlock tries to dispel you. This is where you can use Intimidating Shout as well. Whatever crowd control that you have on your team. I have Incapacitating Roar. It was unfortunate that while we were pushing, we all got Rung of Frost. This actually does end up putting us very far behind. I try to use Frenzy Regeneration to recover, get my Thrash back off because it fell during all the crowd control the Warlock was spamming. And now I have a bash. The Druid has no trinket. The Mage has no ice block. If I could get a bash on the Druid, it would be great, but I'm in this tough position where if I use mobility, I'm fortunate that the Mage actually blinks the Druid, so I can use my mobility to get to the Druid, to stun the Druid, and then kill the Mage. And it's still at this position, that 3M with the green icon, even though the Mage is dead, the game is not over. You run away from that. You don't want to die. I use Incapacitating Roar on the Warlock to prevent him from casting. I get back to the box. I put Rejuvenation on everyone. Because the warrior isn't next to me, I prioritize regrowth over wild growth. I tell my Shaman to heal the warrior and himself, not me, because of course I'm in a position where I'm not going to take any damage. I just want to communicate as much information as possible. Now, this is a strategy that it looks really easy to pull off, but it doesn't always work. And some Mage Warlock Druids may make it more difficult for you to run away from those Infernals. So using Bash, Mortal Coil, and Ursul's Vortex will make it difficult. I do sometimes save Stampeding Roar to run away from the Infernals rather than staying on the Mage. At least in the earlier game, I use it to run away because it's more likely we die before Dampening than it is that they die. So I focus on my mobility more so to run away than to engage. But once Dampening is up there, we've got Electrocute, we've got Purge. All aboard the Mage train. We are going. It's leaving the station. Of course, we're still just respecting the team as it's really deep into Dampening. Really, really long game. So using Intimidating Shout on the Druid and trying to just do as much damage to the Warlock, coordinating interrupts on Chaos Bolt, as it's going to be the biggest threat here. And still, I just want to say, because Guardian Druid is normally this, you pad the meter, you do as much damage to as many targets as possible. In this comp, you can really only attack one target because they're all spread out. So you need to focus on single target damage, and this is done through Mangle and Maul more so than Moonfire. You shouldn't be trying your best to keep Thrash up on as many people as possible, because that's padding damage against the composition that you need single target damage. You need to be a threat, and you need to be able to take them down and kill them. But we had a rough session the other day. We actually went down 100 rating, but then we were back up 100 rating the following day. If you're intending on playing a Guardian Druid composition, I would say that don't play it for a long period of time, like maybe 3 hours max, because the games are really long and draining, and you just start making mistakes that you shouldn't make, and you end up losing normally because of it. But either way, I hope this strategy is helpful for you against the Mage, Warlock, Druid composition, as it is so prevalent on the ladder. This is a strategy that you can utilize as any composition, not just a Guardian Druid. Very important to avoid those Infernals, Combustion, and Dark Soul when active, or try to crowd control and disrupt them if you're going to stay in and try and do damage. But I would say it's typically the strategy to run away from them and respect them. Either way, thank you for tuning in to another video. I really do appreciate it. You can catch me on twitch.tv/Supatease. I'm going to be trying my best to push as high rating as I can with this Guardian Druid composition. If you'd like to come and hang out and come along the way, then feel free to. I'm gearing up a Discipline Priest as well to try and get some videos out on Discipline Priest. I believe I have a Destruction Warlock coming as well. I'm jumping into some raids for a Restoration Shaman, so there should be more videos than just being a tank player here. But yeah, I hope that this video was helpful to you. Thank you very much for coming in and watching it, and we will see you on the next one. Peace out.